Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kim Barrett Show. I'm your host, Kim Barrett, and on today's episode, we are joined by Nida, really honing in on a category of one. So if you're a business who's finding a bit of competition, finding it hard to separate yourself out from the crowd, this is the episode for you. And of course, if we can help you market that little special area of category of one genius that you have, make sure you head over to marketingmogul.com.au where we have all the things you need. But until then, let's jump into the show. Nida, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
I'm pleased to be on the show. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolute pleasure. Now, I always like to start the podcast off the same way every time, which is if I met you and we were out at a party and I said to you, Nida, what is it that you actually do? What's your go-to answer?
Yeah, I try to keep this simple. So I work with coaches, consultants, experts, thought leaders, and service providers. And I'm a business coach and consultant. So I help these entrepreneurs build a business that is a category of one business.
So break that down for us a little bit more. Category of one. What does it mean?
Yeah, that's usually the follow-up question I get, right? So category one business basically is a business where they have created a category for themselves, something innovative, something new, like Airbnb, Apple, Netflix. These companies have, just looked in the market and see, what's missing? What's missing? What's a problem that nobody is solving or not solving good enough? And they thought of a new solution that was innovative and unique to the market. And they just build this category where nobody was in that category. And of course, throughout the years, you might start to get, people starting to copy you or, try to get into the category, but you will always be known for the person that invented or started that category. Basically, it's coming from a perspective of business differentiation. You're differentiating yourself with a unique positioning, with a unique offer, unique solution for the audience that you are serving. And so I help my clients do that.
So can I ask you, is helping your clients identify and become a category of one business, is that your category of one?
Yes, that's my category of one.
I like it. I was just curious. I was like getting like too deep in the category of one layers there. So for example, and the reason why I asked that is because there's a lot of people who probably think they're in a competitive or a saturated market. How do they start identifying how to differentiate themselves? Because a lot of times, like, even myself, I have a Facebook advertising company. Some people are like, well, we just do Facebook. They just do it Facebook advertising. And it all gets lumped in together. So how do you help people start to identify and separate out those things?
Yeah, I love that question. We have a proprietary system where we work with the clients, but it's a done for you service as well. Just because our sweet spot, I'm just like, my number one strength is ideation. I love ideating. I love creating new ideas. Just looking into the world and seeing what's the problem, and like, how can we solve it better than anyone? So I believe that everybody has their own ultra geniuses, right? So what we do is we go into the business or the company, or we work with an entrepreneur, and we start with two things. We look at the industry that they're in. Do you still want to be in this industry? If you still want to be in this industry, then we look at the gaps that are in that market. There's always a gap. There's always a problem. For example, the quality of the service that, each service provider is providing to their client. Sometimes there's something missing or there's a lack of quality somehow, and sometimes it's not a problem that customers are aware of. It's not a problem that clients are aware of, but you're looking into the future and seeing, what's a problem that we can solve for clients that they aren't even aware of that problem yet. How can we do better? How can we think from a totally different perspective? And that when we look at that gap, Then we look at the ultra geniuses of the business owner or the entrepreneur and the team. What are they really great at? I know we're all great at many things, right? We're multi-passionate, multi-talented. We have many strengths, but what's that one thing that you do better than everybody else in your industry? And there's always a few things that we can find. And then there's usually that thing that you're really special at is the thing that brings the most joy. Just because you enjoy it so much, you're so passionate with that one thing. And so you're not just going to be doing one thing, but we use that one thing to create this offer to reposition you as this expert, and you're offering this unique solution. So we're pairing or matching your ultra geniuses with that need that is not being fulfilled in the market. And that's how we start to do it. And then there's like a lot of research, a lot of 360 assessment and deep dive interviews that we do with the internal team, with employees, to find their strengths, their weaknesses, their blind spots. And then we interview their clients, their potential clients, their ideal clients that maybe they aren't working with yet, to get all this data, this insight, these insights, these information that we use to work with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I assumed it was a pretty robust process to be able to get that out. So what made you want to go down that line? Like, what made you go, look, this is the gap in the coaching industry that I want to go down and help? Like, how did that come about for you?
Yeah, it's kind of like a coincidence, I would say, but we know there's no coincidences, right? I think it was just naturally, it just naturally happened for me because it was what I was always obsessed with. So I'm all about excellence, like the pursuit of excellence, how to have and for me, it's integrity. It's not really like I'm competing with anybody, but I feel like, hey, clients are paying you, so you need to have that integrity to serve them. And when I look in the industry, every industry that my clients are in all sorts of industries, and also in the coaching industry that I'm in as well, a big problem that's in each industry is the lack of quality, and this thing where people are over promising and under delivering. And that has been a problem that I've always been frustrated with, even as a consumer as well. Because I go and I hire mentors, or I enroll in group coaching programs. So I'm a consumer in this market that I'm in as well. And lots of times I was so disappointed that I would be hiring these experts or joining these group programs, and then I wasn't getting the results that was promised. You know what I mean? And lots of times people just don't care. Like, entrepreneurs are just like focusing on the sales. Let's get more sales, more sales, more sales. But they're not focusing on the results that people are getting. That's an example from the coaching space, for example. And I would see this problem happening in every single industry, whether product-based or service-based. I serve service-based, but we see this in the product-based world as well. And I think for the product-based world, sometimes you can see with your eyes when a product is broken or something like that. But in the service world, it's not that tangible sometimes. So, you know what I mean? And so you need to really actively measure whether clients are getting the results. Are they happy? Even doing those net promoter score surveys where, how likely would you recommend this to your friend or your family? And then that's a whole new formula where you actually can find out whether clients are happy with you or not. And you're looking for people that are really, really happy with your services, because those are the raving fans. And, but you want to look at the other side of the net promoter score as well. That's the people that will score you from a 0 to 6, because those are the distractors, and they will actually go on and tell a lot of people if they're not happy with your services, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs make a mistake and they just pay attention to the raving fans. Like, you can have 5% of your customers be raving fans and you're like, oh, we're doing so well, but then, like, what if 60% of your customers are distractors, right? Or even if they rated you a 7 or 8, they're still passive. They're considered passive if they give you a 7 or 8. It might seem like a high score, but they're passive. They're not going to tell anybody because they're not that happy with you. And so that was my biggest frustration. And I always worked with clients in a way that I would help them, number one, improve their services, offer the best thing that they can, and just be really innovative in the way that they think or they craft their offer. And it ended up putting a lot of my clients in a category of one. And that's how I discovered that I wanted to do this. So it was kind of like coming from my own frustrations as I saw these things happening in the market. And I wanted to raise the standard, raise the bar in all these industries. And yeah, that's how I got to be doing what I do.
And so were you always in the coaching world, or like what drove you into that industry specifically?
Well, my background was in Fortune 500 companies. So I worked with L'Oreal and Unilever. After I finished my master's degree at the age of 21, I joined L'Oreal as the first company, managing one of the top makeup brands, right? And I really learned a lot of marketing and managing a whole brand and everything. It was so great. But I realized after 5 years at working for many Fortune 500 companies that my personality type I was just not cut out to be working in a corporate environment. I like to break rules. I like to create my own thing. So I wasn't such a great person to follow rules, right? and processes, right? And you're smiling there, probably you're maybe similar. Like entrepreneurs are like that, right? And so after 5 years, I started a family, had a baby, and I started a child development center. And that's when I discovered that, oh my God, I was born to be doing something that's involved with psychology and human potential. I started with child development psychology. And with that, I started pivoting into training people and certifying people to be coaches. I got into coaching first, of course, and then I started my own coach training program. And then because of my marketing background, people started to ask me like, how are you marketing your business and how are you doing this and that? So I've always been a consultant, but now I'm like pivoting into like consulting for coaches, consultants, and thought leaders. And that inspires me so much because I know that I am working with the impact makers, all these experts that are going to go out and change the world. And at the core, that's what I'm all about. I want to help people impact the world in a positive way, and at the same time get connected to their mission on earth, their life purpose. Because when you find that, it's like every day you have a life full of, you're alive, you feel alive, you feel passionate. And I think what you do as a career or business, it just takes so much of your time in your everyday life. It just impacts every other part of your life, whether your health, your family, your relationships. And so that's kind of how I got into what I do now. Yeah. I discovered it because of something else, of another business that I started, but it was going in the right direction. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. It's funny. There's always a little catalyst somewhere which like pushes people towards. That's why I'm always curious about that. That's really cool.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And so for anyone listening, if they're going, all right, it sounds like I might need to be and move myself towards the category of one and start to understand that. What are the sorts of results you've seen from your clients once they do really tap into those like creative geniuses that they have and move towards being in a category of one? What's the differences that can make to a business?
Yeah, I love your questions, Kim. I just really love your questions. So I'm trying to organize my thoughts here. So there's the practical kind of reasons on the business side, right? So market differentiation, business differentiation is always smart because you're basically just getting out of the crowd, like all these people are selling the same thing. So when you're able to own this one thing, it's so much easier for you to scale. You get a lot much more for the budget that you're spending on marketing, advertising, or anything. And you just have this differentiating point where, you attract attention from press, from media, you get known for this thing. It's just so much easier to do business that way. And on the personal side, which I'm just so passionate about talking about, because when clients discover this thing, it's like they become so much more confident in what they sell. Sales conversations, sales consultation sessions become like they can close much more sales than they have before, because they're really proud of what they're offering. They know that, oh my God, this thing that I'm offering, like everybody has to know about it. Compared to previously, they were like, I don't know whether, I don't feel confident with this thing that I'm selling because, people are going to compare me to this person and that person. What if they say that I'm not qualified? You know what I mean? And just because they think that everybody's offering this thing. And so they feel they need to convince people that mine's better, or, you have to hire me. And so after they find this category of one, they become very confident. They own this like it's their baby. They can talk all day, all night about it. They can write articles about it. And they can feel really confident, really proud about creating this thing. Basically, they become a leader. They become forward thinking. And I think it transforms the identity and how they perceive themselves at a deep level. Almost like, oh my God, I've discovered this thing on my hero's journey. I was meant to be doing this thing. And that really transforms people's way of thinking and doing things, and how they show up in the world. And so I think for me, like I like to focus on that transformation. On the business side, it's quite obvious, how you can really scale and grow your business when you find that thing. So I'm super passionate when I help these amazing people find their category of one and really own it.
Sounds like obviously like we can see that you get very excited talking about this, which is awesome, which is really cool to see. But is there any one like client transformation where you're like, this was just like the cherry on top, where it was just like you got to see something really amazing happen, and that when you were able to help them unpack all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah. Well, okay. So there's this, I'll give you two examples. So there's a career coach. So in the career coaching world, basically most career coaches will do like help you with a resume, cover letter, or they'll help you prepare for, like, you'll get these interview questions and you should prepare an answer for this and that, right? So I was working with this career coach, and she's worked with, United Nations and many, Fortune 500 companies. And she left corporate for many years. And she was really, when she was in corporate, she felt really accomplished. She was really on top of her game. But when she left to be an entrepreneur, we know this, right? We see a lot of this happen when people left the corporate world and went to start their own business. They really struggle because it's a totally different game. When you're working for someone else, now you're spending your own money and you're investing, and it's a totally new world, even though it's the world of business. She was like enrolling in hundreds of courses and every certification there was out there, and from branding and ads and like just everything, right? But she wasn't getting anywhere. And she was working for several companies as a career coach as well, like as a freelance. And she was like struggling to start her own business. But when she worked with me, we kind of came up with these new ideas of like, how can we be different? And we researched the whole market. What are all the other career coaches doing? And who do you want to be known for? What do you want to be known for? Who do you want to work with? And she wanted to work with high-level executives. She wanted to help people become, get into the C-suite and become the next, CFO or whatever, right? Or CEO. And that was like her sweet spot. She wanted to work with these high achievers, and because the CEOs or people that are in the higher level of the company, they get to make a lot of impact for the whole organization. So we looked at what was missing and what she could do to help these people. And we came up with an offer that offered 12 things that nobody else was offering, from helping them show up better in interviews. We didn't, this is just an example so that I don't spend an hour talking about this, but normally people would just give them a list of questions and they would go and, I'll prepare and all that. But what we did was we said, hey, let's go and get someone that's a native speaker in the language that you will be interviewing in. And you can set up a camera, video camera, and you're going to do the practice interview. And then we're going to look at the video, and then we're going to give feedback to you on how you can improve. So through this method of like continuous feedback and doing it and feedback and then doing the interview again, people can get so much better. And this is like applicable with every single skill. And they got to learn so much of like what they were doing wrong in these interviews and how they could improve the way they answered the questions. Some people are just like, they have the knowledge, they have the background, but they weren't able to craft what they were thinking in their head into words that could convey the vision or what they really stood for. Those things that we don't think are important are really important. And when they got the feedback and they were able to improve on these things, like they become much more confident. They were able to, and that sort of happened again, like, oh, I found my awesomeness, and oh, now I feel so confident because I'm able to convey this in a better way. And so that the interview piece is just an example of how we went over and beyond, like took the extra 100 miles to do what nobody else is doing. And most people would probably not think of even doing, because it's like, oh, it's a waste of time. It's my resources. You know what I mean? And then, so we looked at personal branding. We looked at the networking piece. We looked at their leadership skills and like all sorts of things. So 12 areas of what someone would need to become the next CEO. So that's just an example. And so we really transformed how a career coaching program or, coach one-on-one coaching program would look like.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And I think it gives a clear example for people when it's like, there's probably, as you say, like when you go through and unpack all of those things, there's so many things that people don't do, overlook. And as you say, you can see how it becomes really applicable to many different industries. So that's super cool. And now, Nida, as we get towards the end of our time here together, I always like to ask the same question to finish the podcast off, which is there a question that I didn't ask you that I should have?
I love that question. Let me see. I don't know. I just love the questions that you asked me. I don't know. I can't think of one now. I might be able to think of one after the interview.
That's all right. If I did a good enough job to get all the questions, if I asked all the right questions, I'm happy.
I can't think of one now. I don't know. Maybe I'll just say this. If there was one message that I wanted to tell the world, what would it be? And for me, I would say everybody has this genius inside them. It's just that most of the times we're not aware of it. It's a journey. It's like this journey that you have to go on to find it. But once you find it, it will bring so much fulfillment into your life. And you get to serve at the highest level. You get to do what you love the most, and you get to make the most impact in the world. So I would say, search for that ultra genius. Search for that thing that you were meant to own and to pass on to other people. Whether you're an entrepreneur, or you're working in a company or whatever, we all have that genius. We just need to find it, and we need to cultivate it and develop it, And for me, through my own journey and working with other individuals, I feel that's just like, it's so important for us as human beings. And I'm always about impact. And so when we own and we find and we discover those things, we're able to pass it to other people and help other people, discover their best versions of themselves, whatever it is. So that would be the message.
You said you didn't know, and then you just dropped some profound wisdom on everyone. I like it. That was great.
In the coaching space, when clients actually answer, I don't know, coaches will say like, well, what if you did know? And they always know. Right? We just have to look more. We have to just dig more. We'll always have an answer.
Yeah, that's so true. And now, for anyone listening, if they've said, look, I really like what I've heard from Nida and they want to find out more about what you're up to, where's the best place for them to connect with you online?
They can reach out to me and connect with me on Instagram at Nida Leard, or they can connect with me on my website. It's currently under construction, but I do have a quiz. So I'd like to provide a free quiz for your listeners if they want to find their entrepreneurial edge. I have a free quiz that we specially made just for coaches, consultants, service providers, experts, and thought leaders. And they can just log in and go do it. It's free. Completely free, at nidaleard.com/quiz. And they can just go and answer 10 questions and they will get their blueprints and find out what their entrepreneurial edge, what sets them apart from the rest of the competition, rest of other entrepreneurs.
Amazing. So guys, make sure you look above or below in the show notes. We'll have those all for you guys to access. And of course, if you know someone, maybe they need to tap into their category of one and really identify what their area of genius is. Make sure you share this episode with them so that they can find out all about it and hear from Nida. So again, Nida, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm honored.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.